savings of procurement costs to the district. 5, our board eliminated Disney perks paid to government workers that resulted in that $2.1 million IRS fine and grossed up the compensation for those workers so they would not be penalized because of Disney's misdeeds. 6, our board approved a collective bargaining agreement with the district's firefighters, a negotiation that had been stalled for 5 years under the old board. And then finally, our board is hired, as the governor mentioned, is hired several of the nation's leading independent experts to advise the board on how to improve the district's financial, operational, and urban planning strategies going forward. And so, look, I am very proud of the reforms that our board has implemented in just 12 short months. I am deeply grateful to the governor for his courage to right the wrongs that persisted here for decades. The district now has a much more just culture and a much brighter future. There is a lot more work to do to fulfill the wishes of the people of Florida under the legislation that the governor signed. And I can promise you, on behalf of my board, that we will continue to reform the district for the benefit of all of its constituents. Thank you.
All right, Drew. Well, thank you, Governor. Thank you, everybody. Good morning. My name is Drew Crawford. I'm an attorney from Polk County. I stand before you today primarily because I am the example of what the Buy Local Now program that's been implemented here in the district and what it can mean for our economy. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and my law firm, and I think you'll understand. So I'm a board certified city, county, local government attorney. I represent mainly cities. You probably never met me because I'm down in Polk County. My law firm, Boswell and Dunlap, was started in 1900 in Bartow. And we provided legal services to the Polk County community and area governments in that county for over a century. And what's interesting about that, we have a lot of experience that we can bring to bear. We don't advertise, we don't go out and seek work, but what we do when clients need us, and the only way they tell us that they need us is that they put out an advertisement that says, "Hey, we would like for you to, bid on this work." We respond to that, and we are happy to have those clients. And we have a list of a significant public sector innovators, such as City of Winter Haven, such as Polk State College, such as the Polk County School District, and we're happy to add SIFTOD to the list. And I can't tell thanks enough to the governor, thanks enough to the chair, thanks to the district administrator, the members of the board of supervisors for that opportunity. So a little bit more about me. I am, as I mentioned, I was a board certified city, county, local government attorney. I've spent 19 years in municipal law. I've spent 13 as a local government administrative magistrate, handling code enforcement disputes and resolving matters in favor or against just the governments or the folks who appear. And those, I've been asked by by SIFTOD to come in and be the local government magistrate here. And so what does that mean? That means that I'm supposed to do fair, expedient, impartial evaluations, administrative resolutions of building, fire, real property maintenance related matters. And I think the most interesting thing is, this kind of goes to what you were saying, Mr. Chairman. I don't believe there was a code enforcement program here in the district prior to this year. So this way we can, the reason why that's important is that like a court, right? A code enforcement magistrate provides a fair, open public forum for resolving these kinds of disputes. But what it really does is it creates transparency and improves the collective accountability of property owners to each other and tenants and to property owners, so that you lift, like a rising tide lifts all boats. The properties are maintained to the standards that are created. but it increases the public's confidence that local government, which is the one closest to the people, and the civil inspection teams that are employed by local government are accurate, courteous, responsive, and responsible. And that's exactly what I believe that this board is doing. And Governor, again, I thank you for the opportunity to do that. My last thing I want to say, I think it's important too. Administrator Gilzane, I want to thank you and your staff for the bidding process. As somebody who engages in advising local governments on bidding, I got to tell you that your team and the process here that you have implemented in the district has been excellent. It's been wonderful and very professional. And I hold it out as an example for others to follow. So yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Mandy.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, again for an opportunity to speak. I don't know if any of you remember me. If you were here this time last year, I was the mom who spoke as not trusting Disney anymore. And so I still stand here today having that same feeling. I grew up in Osceola County. I was impacted as a child, an adult. My son, Disney was a part of our life growing up, and the memories that Disney provided were irreplaceable, and they'll forever remain in my heart. I stood with you, Governor, as I expressed my disappointment in Disney's decision to speak out against the Parental Rights and Education Bill, and I still stand with you today. They should not have picked this fight. The moral standards of our nation everywhere today are being challenged and compromised. And as a parent, it appalls me that our children are constantly bombarded with immorality and immoral messaging that at home, I'm trying to teach my son the right thing to do. So this mama bear will continue to remain in the ring and fight for my child or any child that's impacted by the woke ideologies that are robbing our family traditions. I will continue to find truth. I will continue to love truth. I will continue to speak truth, and I will continue to defend truth. The side of the moral argument that Disney continues to take is wrong. However, I will never lose hope that Walt Disney's vision will be restored and that the woke ideologies will be removed from Disney forever. Thank you.
And so we've obviously there was a lot of fanfare last year when Disney filed suit in federal district court against the state of Florida over what the legislature did to create this Central Florida Tourism Oversight District. And I predicted then that it wasn't going anywhere. And as we stand here today, that case has been dismissed by a federal district judge in the Northern District of Florida. And I know they said they're going to appeal.
So you mean he won?
They're going to appeal.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. It stalled out for a minute, but when it comes, I'm streaming this from Rumble, but you had these bozos like Kari Lake, the Trump humpers like Vivek Ramaswamy, saying that Kari Lake good.
We also had the issue of prior to this legislation taking effect, Disney tried to enact with Reedy Creek these restrictive covenants to effectively lock in their self-governing ability over the district, irrespective of the will of the legislature. And that was really a slap in the face to the people of Florida, because the first bill we did was in 2022. People said, oh, the Central Florida folks, the voters are not going to like that you're holding Disney accountable. And what ended up happening? I was the first Republican in like 20 years to win Osceola County, which is where most Disney employees live. So it was a total And so if you look at the Central Florida results, like this was an issue in that election. Clearly, we won going away. And so then when this bill, the HB, the special session bill came, we had major majorities in the legislature supported this. Like there was no question that where the people were going on this, and then for them to try to undercut that. So that hasn't worked. We have a declaratory action just to make the, but I mean, basically the district is operating as if those covenants are null and void, because they are. But that was really an underhanded thing. And so that, I think, is something that has also gone by the wayside. So we're now in a position where we have an opportunity to continue these reforms that are going to be good for people in the Central Florida community, good for the state of Florida. And there's a lot of opportunities here. I mean, I know we have, Universal is going to do the Epic is coming, I guess, in 2025. There's a lot that's been rumored maybe for Disney to do things. And I think that we want everyone to be successful, but we need government to be transparent. We need it to be accountable, and we need it to answer to we the people, not to one single company. And that's what we've done. All right. Anybody back there? Yes.
Akiva, set up to notify when I go on.
Do you have any thoughts? Is that something that you would support as governor?
So last year, I signed something very important. We said we took action because we do not want China being able to buy land in the state of Florida. No farmland, no land near military bases, and also other countries of concern, although I think the CCP threat is the most significant. And the legislature, a lot of the language that was there was things that they had suggested in that bill. What I see going on now is attempt to unwind what we've done to protect Floridians against the threat posed by China. So that is not something, as far as I've seen, that is not something that's going to pass muster with me. I think we have to open our eyes. China wants to buy farmland. They want to buy land near military bases. They want to buy land near critical infrastructure. There's a whole host of things that are caught up in this that I think are really, really important. And so trying to unwind that, what we did has actually been a model. Other states are moving this direction. We already survived in federal district court, and I know the appeals court said some of the people that had these transactions prior to the bill taking effect. But going forward, we think it's good. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think what they're trying to do is unwind what we did, and I'm going to stand firm for what we've already done.
Mini bill for minors. It looks like it's going to get passed in one form or another, and there's been some changes made. Do you support the changes that have been made for, and do you still?
It's still under negotiation. We're working. I understand it's important to the speaker. I tell all the legislative leaders, I want you guys to be helpful. I mean, I want you guys to be successful. So if something's important to you, I want to try to get it done. But I also think that there are legitimate issues that got to be worked out in that. And I'm somebody that looks at it and says, okay, 13 and under, federal law already says you can't have a social media account. That's not really enforced by the federal government. And I'm fine with saying, let's have enforcement. As you get into 14 and 15, I think it's harmful for them to be on some of those platforms that have certain functionality that is addictive. I agree with that. But I also believe that parents need to have a role in this. So we're working to make sure that there's a role for parent. You can say it's disfavored or not allowed for 14, 15, but a parent, has the right to opt in if they think, because as much as I think it's harmful to have people on these social media platforms for 5 or 6 hours a day, a parent can supervise a kid to use it more sparingly. And so we can't say 100% of the uses are bad, because it's not. And I'm a critic of social media, but I also
social media sucks
from a parent's perspective. So we're working through those. I don't think it's there yet. Hopefully we'll be able to get there in a way that I think answers the concerns that a lot of folks have, because I do think parents are concerned about social media and what goes on there. And I do think they think it's a problem. But I also think that for people that are, in high school, it's not as simple. I think you got to have some parent involvement. Yes, sir.
plan for this district with the help of the state attorney. And
Does anyone want to address that? Oh, we got the state attorney. You want to come up? John, the floor is yours, man. You want to do?
Isn't he awesome? We could have
All
had
I
this.
can say, I think it's great to have a state attorney in Central Florida that actually wants to put criminals behind bars for itself.
We could have had this if Trump would get his fat, stupid ass out of the way. I think DeSantis appointed this guy. He did. DeSantis appointed him.
Director.
When he removed the Soros attorney, he appointed this guy.
And the sheriff's offices locally here to probably try to put something together here to combat a very serious problem that we have here in Central Florida. Central Florida ranks 3rd in the nation of human trafficking reports. The city of Orlando ranks 3rd among cities for human trafficking reports. We recover kids basically on a weekly basis here in our district, in the local area. And it's a problem because we are in a position that we are usually in a retroactive or proactive type situation. We are trying to now take the fight to these traffickers. They are slavers.
This is Andrew Bain.
Right? That's what they are. They slave. They slave our children. They slave like people into work. They slave people into sexual commercial acts. And we want to put an end to that here in Central Florida. And there was no tolerance for that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that if you look, it's the unfortunately the human trafficking is really the magnet is when you have a lot of events and things like that. So obviously Florida Central, there's conventions, there's a whole bunch of stuff. South Florida, same thing. When we have the Super Bowl, which we've had 2 since I've been governor, that's there. So these are things that attract this criminal element. And so we've done a lot in the state to beef up penalties and to add further support. Honestly, we were some of the previous things had been stymied partially by one of the companies here, of course, in the past. And so I think we've got more momentum, and I think it's great that they're collaborating on this.
One of the provisions of that is going to ask municipalities to set up an alternate site where people can go and be outside in public, but also get services that they may need, including mental health. If an area doesn't have something like that already, what possible help or aid could come from the state to help them set up an area like that?
It's a good question. So first of all, we are not going to let Florida become San Francisco, where homeless are everywhere. We're not going to let that happen.
Thank God.
And honestly, if you look in LA,
They need to get their carcasses up and take it to the Salvation Army.
That is false compassion to say that people can sleep everywhere.
Yep.
Harass people coming by, use drugs, open air drug markets, and all this stuff. That is a society in decline when that becomes the norm. So we're going to be very clear. Now, look, we don't have the same problems at those levels, but especially when you have municipalities where you may have leadership has a different philosophical bent that I think most Floridians would have on this, there's a danger that there could be something that could explode in one of our cities in Florida. So I think what the bill's trying to do, and I support this, is limit local governments from allowing this sleeping in public. You don't want the homeless intruding on quality of life, on public safety, and on businesses and the economy. And so that has got to be the firm line that you have. Now, I think most people agree with that. What courts have said, and I'm not sure that this is the proper interpretation of the Constitution, but I think this started, during the Warren Court, where they just kind of made it up as they went along. So why not, right? But I think what they said is if you ban sleeping in public on the streets and on the sidewalks, that was unconstitutional unless there was some place to go. So and I think Orlando had something that got approved.
There are places to go. Faith Farm, YMCA, Salvation Army, Calvary House.
The court said, well, no, you can remove them off the street if there's shelter. So I think what the bill's trying to do is say hard and fast rule. No campments, none of this stuff in public. The average citizen should never be intruded upon because of homeless. And then you did. But then what do you have to do to make sure it survives judicial scrutiny? You got to have sheltering ability. And then if they want to set up some of these sites, it can't just be some site is like Sodom and Gomorrah where they're using drugs and doing all this stuff. It needs to be situation where help
It's like
is available.
Amsterdam on the
So would
wire.
I be willing to help with
free
things like
zone.
mental health? I would be willing to do that from the state level, because if you look at some of the homeless, it's not just, oh, they need an apartment. You can take some of these people in San Francisco, put them in an apartment, and that doesn't solve the problem, because the homelessness is a symptom of the underlying mental illness that they're suffering from. It's not the cause. So yes, I'd be willing to help with that at the state level. I think that that's important. I don't think it would be something that most communities would need. I think there'd probably be a handful where we would want to make sure that this thing doesn't go sideways, because I can tell you, I mean, you guys probably know, you have people that have moved to Florida in large numbers. We've always attracted people, but particularly over the last 3 or 4 years, you've had people, yes, they were fleeing some of the COVID mandates. Yes, some of this, the taxes, but the public safety has been a huge issue. And yes, part of it is you have these prosecutors who wouldn't prosecute. You have police that weren't supported in these areas and weren't able to do their job. But this homelessness and drug use really has hurt the quality of life for people in some of these once very proud and vibrant American cities. So I think that legislation is saying we're not going to let that happen in Florida, and we're willing to take whatever remedial that we have to do to make sure it passes judicial scrutiny going forward. But ultimately, I think the mental health component of this is really, really good. And so the question is, like a San Francisco, their view is they want to facilitate more of this. And of course, you're getting more of it. I think ours, we want to discourage this, and we want people to get on their feet. But at a minimum, we cannot have a family feel unsafe just walking down the street of some place in Orlando or Miami Beach or wherever, because there's a massive homeless encampment.
I'm with you, Anthony. I'm with you. I'm with you on the Trump thing. He's right on.
Back in October, approved a special district for Universal and its Epic Universe, a special testing district. Just like we're dealing with.
Well, what I said at the beginning. So there are a lot of districts in Florida, the development districts. When they build subdivisions, they'll do community CDDs. So it's not a question of a special district. I think if you look the districts prior to 1968. When Florida's current constitution was ratified, Reedy Creek was one of those because it was 67. They were given authority that would be unconstitutional under the current constitution. So when they're doing these things, there's a valid use for it, but it is not going to be something where the corporation takes over the entire local government and is able to do some of the things that Martin pointed out. That the reason that happened was because of it's a combination of the extraordinary authority that the Florida legislature gave to Reedy Creek, and then the fact that Disney did not go forward with building the residential communities. Because if they had built a big residential community, Reedy Creek, you would have had to elect councilmen and mayors, and you would have had, the voters would have decided, and the audit goes through this, but I mean, Disney, like, they were very devious with how they did this. They would literally, they would control the few number of people who actually live there, and it was all at their courtesy. And as soon as your term for, you'd vote, you'd get elected, and then they'd kick you out when your term was over, and they'd cycle more. I mean, you talk about rigging the system, man, this was rigged. I mean, it was unbelievable. So, but bottom line is there are absolutely legitimate uses for special districts. I would say the ones post 1968, I've not seen any of them that have been even close to what Disney has had. There were some prior to 68 that were just not as significant in the overall scheme of things, that had some stuff. I mean, Reedy Creek had a provision for extraterritorial eminent domain. So you look at that Reedy Creek map, they could obviously they controlled that. They could eminent domain outside of the district's boundaries. I remember I was at an event, I think, as when one of the salvos of this had happened, and the whole Reedy Creek thing was up in the air, and we were right across the border at somebody's house, and they're like, "Yeah, there's Reedy Creek." I was like, unless we go through with these changes, they can seize your house for eminent domain. You can do that. I mean, imagine the power of that, to have one corporation be able to seize property outside of this district. I mean, unbelievable and unprecedented. All right, guys, this is a good story, a good example of good government. Thank you.
And we could have had him as our presidential nominee, but Donald Trump wouldn't get his fat, stupid ass out of the way. So we're stuck with Trump, who loves dictators, wears the same exact suit every day because he's psychotic and is mentally unbalanced. We could have had this. And the first, you had these just absolute piss ants, like this little piss ant Vivek and Kari Lake, longtime Democrat. Kari Lake became a Republican when she saw the light, right? Ron DeSantis, he can't beat Donald Duck. So what makes him think he can beat Donald Trump? This is what Kari Lake said. Well, DeSantis has won victories in every one of his court cases against Disney. And basically, he's just saying Disney has to play by the same rules as everybody else with their tourism district. You heard it. And you know how Trump supporters hate it when systems are rigged, right? Well, they were rigging the system to their own financial benefit and being pretty devious. I like what he said about it. And Ron DeSantis came in there, straightened it out, took the power away from them. And now they have to pay the same taxes and do the same, abide by the same rules as everybody else. And you know what really pushed DeSantis to do this is when they went against the parental rights and education law. And then also let's just look at all the woke movies. Let's look at what Disney's done to Star Wars. I mean, that what they did with episodes 7, 8, and 9 as a Star Wars fan as a kid, what they did with like these shitty characters and just the horrible discombobulated storyline, bringing Palpatine back just to shit on him. That's unforgivable to me anyway. So Disney had it coming, and DeSantis is basically just making them play by the same rules. But you had the Trump supporters were very against this. Trump was against this himself. He was crying about it. Trump's a big government guy, and he likes corporatism. Okay. Trump is not a small government anti-corporatist guy. Okay. He is, Trump is a very big government guy. He thinks that power should be consolidated in the executive branch. He said that he wants to shred the Constitution, and he did during the shutdowns. Trump said, quote, on Truth Social on December 3rd, 2022, so with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception and working closely with big tech companies, the DNC and Democrat Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, all caps, or do you have a new election, all caps? The massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. This is what Trump said, okay? DeSantis is a small government, anti-corporatist, pretty much all that's left of the Republican Party, of the conservative wing of the Republican Party. You know, I hear CPAC is going on, and it started as Conservative Political Action Committee. And who do they have speaking? Steve Bannon. This guy's not a conservative, all right? He's a Hollywood writer who decided to jump on this bandwagon. These guys, they do not believe in small government. They don't understand conservatism in any way, but they've basically just hijacked that part of the Republican Party and made it MAGA. It's MAGA now. Now, when it comes to social media, DeSantis taken strong action and to limit the amount that kids can be on social media. And I'll tell you right now, I've been off Twitter for 10 days today. I am a Twitter addict. Okay. I am a Twitter holic. All right. What do I mean by that? And I appreciate you guys that are watching. Please set this up to that you get notifications when I go on YouTube, because I'm only going to be going on YouTube. I don't go on Rumble. I think Rumble is trash. DeSantis is on Rumble because he got censored on YouTube. But please set up that you get notifications when I go live. I'm going to post some videos. I'm going to go live when DeSantis has his pressers on here. I'm going to go live and do some commentating on it. And, you know, I don't mind the fact that I'm not hitting up as many people as I did when I was on Twitter, because I actually got to listen to that entire press conference. And this is weird. Really, you can't take a break from Twitter unless you detox for at least 10 days. Because after 10 days of being off Twitter, I'm just now starting to kind of get my attention span back. Everybody's wondering where all this ADD is coming from. Well, you know, I mean, the constant scrolling through social media, because what I would typically be doing is DeSantis would be talking and I would be flipping through I'd be flipping through my my Twitter, looking at what other people are saying. And then my wife would go, "Oh, wow, that's a good idea." And I would hear everybody clap. And this is what I would do. I would go, huh? What did he say? Remember that, babe? And I would have no clue what he said because I was flipping through Twitter, because I'm a Twitter addict. Okay. And I understand that there's certain people that can do social media in regulate their social media usage. I can't for some reason. I start the scrolling process and then it just sucks me in. And it really is like a slot machine. It's very addictive. And then I don't hear what he said. So I got to hear that whole presser. And I'm noticing that I'm not even, it is, Anthony. It is just people's useless opinions. And you know, people get on there, they oh my God, the whole world is just waiting for my next take on this. Oh. And some people on Twitter are good. Some people use it good. Like I like watching their takes, but mostly it's just rage. It's just rage. Like people getting enraged over that commercial where it shows Christians washing each other's feet. They were enraged over that. Like, oh, you know, I'm like, there should be a commercial with Jesus going down to the abortion clinic and stoning them. You know, I'm like, well, hold on a second. Didn't Jesus say he is without sin? Cast the first stone to the woman that was caught cheating on her husband. All right. Like conservative MAGA Jesus does not line up with actual Jesus. Okay. You know, I read something interesting out of the book of Numbers this morning, the Numbers 11:1. And when the people complained, it displeased the Lord. That's Numbers 11:1. And then actually a woman became leprous because she was pissing and moaning about Moses. So it's a rage machine on Twitter, basically. Because rage keeps your attention. The more you're outraged, you're more likely to be sucked into something you're outraged about than something that makes you happy. And DeSantis is restricting that for kids, because it's just like how you don't sell alcohol to kids under 21, because some people can handle alcohol, some people can't. But it's unfair when you're that young to get you sucked into that world if you're a person that can't handle it. And I think the same goes with social media. And there's no shame in saying that you're just a person that has to stay away from that stuff. There's no shame in being a person that says you have to stay away from alcohol, or being a person that says you have to stay away from social media. And I can tell you, after 10 days off Twitter, my attention span is coming back. Like I can actually think about the next point I was going to make. And it's about homelessness. Okay. Here in Fort Lauderdale, they had not long back, they had in front of the library a tent city homeless encampment. Okay. This was an open air drug market. All right. People, and it would spill out into the streets. You'd have people just wandering in the middle of the road all around there. It's still kind of bad down there, but they got rid of it finally. But and they're just doing drugs. They're doing drugs and drinking alcohol, you know. And because I went down there a few times, and you know, to feed them and give them clothes and to with ministries, and they're either mentally ill or they're just drinking or they're taking drugs and just living in squalor. And DeSantis said that he's like, it can't be like Sodom and Gomorrah. It's like Amsterdam, if you've seen season 3 of The Wire, where it's like the open air drug market there. But at least in The Wire, they pushed them all into areas where people didn't live. In Fort Lauderdale here, you had the tent city right in front of the damn library. And you still have people that camp out around the library. Their carcasses are all strewn along there as you're walking by, going out. That's not something that people need to see. They don't need to be homeless. Can't take over parks. And and let me tell you, you've got Faith Farm, you've got Calvary House, you got the Salvation Army, and those are the Christian places. But DeSantis is now talking about government places. But there's also I think First Step, there's ACT, there's a lot of different places you can go. But the thing is when you go to those places, you can't be on drugs and alcohol. And a lot of the people that are out there, that's not acceptable for them. And in the case of Calvary House, Salvation Army, and Faith Farm, you have to work. Like, you're not just going to lay around all day. Like, you have to actually get up and contribute something to humanity. All right. And if you're unable to, if you're a little bit crippled or something, then you can work up in the jewelry shop or something. They don't make you go do heavy lifting or something if you're unable to, but you have to work. And most of the people that are out there are home, they're not willing to do that. And a lot of people that are homeless, they do have a place where they can stay. It's transient. Like, you think of homeless people as being they're always homeless, that you just label somebody on their forehead homeless, and they're homeless forever. That's not how it is. A lot of time they're staying with their girl for a little while, then they get kicked out because of drugs or alcohol or whatever. Or they're staying with mom for a while. It's a transient thing. And there's people that are homeless and they're maybe not permanently homeless. They just got kicked out. And there's some that like it. People think that every homeless person doesn't want to be homeless. That's not the case. A lot of them are getting disability checks. Did you know that? A lot of them. And one of the things, I'll tell you, they enable these people. They one of the things that they do, all right, bye, babe. One of the things that they do is the first thing when they get them into some of these government places is fix them up with a disability check, because that's what pays for their stay. So it makes sense for the shelter to, okay, we got to get them on disability because that's going to cover. So, but that's just, I call it disability enabling people, because just handing people free money is not a good idea. All right. Especially people that have bad habits like drugs and alcohol. And then handing them free money with no accountability, like DeSantis said, and letting them just live in squalor on the streets, spend that check until it runs out, then go out and panhandle and harass people on the intersection and in front of Publix. That's not being compassionate, and that's enabling them. And then they end up dead. Where was the compassion in that? So, I think DeSantis has it right with this, that there's a mixture of outreach, making sure there's a place for them to go, and providing state funding for that. I think that's an important place for state funding to go. Of course, God is what people need in their lives. But then the mental illness part, there are people that are genuinely mentally ill. A lot of mental illness is caused by drug and alcohol use or exacerbated by it. Okay. But there are people that are actually mentally ill, like without drugs or alcohol. Something happened to them that damaged them, or they were born with a predisposition and they just have that. And some of them need the help of medication. Not everybody needs medication. I would say, and I worked in the psych unit before, I would say out of all the people that are medicated in America for psychological things, probably only 3% of those people actually need medication. That's what I think. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but like this from observing, I think that people are over medicated, and they're medicated for the wrong reasons. And then a lot of times I think medication is a temporary thing. It's not something that they should be on all the time. But there are people out there that genuinely do have mental disorders that have nothing to do with drugs and alcohol. And they need to be taken care of as well. But in the meantime, you can't have people just strewn all over the place. You can't all over the sidewalks, and then have in Broward, we have this judge, we have a woke judge here and a woke prosecutor, and when they bring in the yeah, Anthony, she probably does. When they bring in people off the street, that judge just puts them back out. And then you've got these, there was something where they were like saying, oh, well, people begging, they need that for life sustenance. And it was interesting because the same people that are claiming that harassing people on the corner and panhandling in front of Publix and stuff, that is needed for sustenance, those same people were telling us that we couldn't go to work because of germs in 2021. So wasn't that for sustenance? You didn't care about my sustenance or the sustenance of the people that wanted to go out and work for a living, but it was like, oh, but you can beg and harass people on a street corner. No. So that can't be tolerated at all, because it's basically like an if you allow it to start in an area where like people can just sleep all over the place and lay there passed out with their liquor bottle, and because if you look at the people that are sleeping all in the parks and stuff, you're gonna find a liquor bottle around. All right, you're just going to. They're drinking, okay, and that can't be allowed. I mean, what can, like, if one, because say for instance, I just decided I was going to go off the edge and start drinking and doing drugs, and my wife kicked me out, and so then I can just go down to a public park and just lay there in my own piss in the middle of the park where people are walking by and walking their dogs and stuff. No, that's not fair. I got to get my act together, right? So, the focus should be on getting and helping people get their act together. And sometimes a lot of that tough love is involved in that. It's not just, oh, well, let's coddle them and stuff, because that's what the system does. The system coddles people, and that's not helpful, and tries to hook them up with free money and all this other stuff. They end up right back on the street doing what they've always been doing. So anyway, this is Chris Nelson. Please like and share and follow this channel and set it up so you get notifications. If DeSantis has a press conference tomorrow, I'll be streaming that as well. Thanks for watching.